Well, first up, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture has requested the local government ministry to ensure metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies ensure strict enforcement of the temporary ban on the export of grains for a period of 6 months. A letter from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to the local government ministry reads, we'll put it up in a bit. It says the Ministry of Trade and Industry in this letter dated 13th April conveyed approval of His Excellency the President to extend the temporary ban on the export of grains for a period of 6 months effective the 1st of April 2022 to the 30th of September. On account of this directive, consequential action is being taken to ensure strict enforcement at all metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies. Accordingly, we kindly request your ministry to issue the required directives to MMDAs to take the necessary action with the involvement of the DISEX to disseminate information and intensify the monitoring of trucks carting grains from market centers to neighboring countries. We urge the prompt action is taken at all times with the involvement of the security agencies to give full effect to the directive of His Excellency the President. And so that's the letter from the Ministry of Agriculture to the local government ministry on the ban on grain export. Joining me via Zoom, Anthony Morrison, who is Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana, and Bismarck Osunorte, Programs Officer, Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. I want to start by asking your thoughts, Anthony, on the ban and how effective you think it has been in addressing our food security challenges.
Well, thank you very much. Very good afternoon to the televiewers and the struggling agribusiness industry in Ghana. They are doing a yeoman's job. But I think that this has come a bit too late. As we have said last year and early this year, Burkina Faso actually placed a ban on this somewhere early last year. The chamber alerted the government. We also called on government last as a result of the low harvest across the board that there was a need for us to put a ban on the export of some essential commodities. But we were in this country when the minister approved the export of soya some few weeks ago. And I don't know what data was available to him before he gave this approval. And just after a few weeks, he's extending or strengthening or putting in place a new ban. For me, it's little to do about nothing. We do not even have the product at all at the first place to even be putting a ban on. A lot of poultry farms are struggling. Over 300 poultry farms have collapsed. As we speak, 50 kg of maize is being sold at 180 in Kumasi. Okay? We are having challenges with several commodities. So it's not about, it's just, let me say, it's window dressing. This will not solve the problem on the ground.
Well, Bismarck, yeah, sorry to cut you, but I want to bring in Bismarck because reading this statement, I get the feeling that compliance is a bit of a problem because the Ministry of Agriculture is asking for the MMDAs to involve security agencies to disseminate information and intensify monitoring of trucks. You deal with smallholder farmers. In terms of compliance, what are you hearing, Bismarck?
Yeah, thank you, and good afternoon to your viewers. I think when it comes to the issue of compliance, it's very difficult to place that on the smallholder farmer. The farmer is just responsible for growing food and ensuring that they are available. But when it comes to carting and moving this food across the borders, that's where you expect the work of the security agencies to be apt. But unfortunately, even with the COVID restrictions that even had a ban on movement of people and goods across the borders, we still saw movement of agricultural goods and inputs across the borders. Issue of compliance, issue of ensuring that our borders are closely guarded to reduce the impact of moving produce, agricultural produce in general, both from the country and even outside the country, has been a major problem. So if we were able to work well on compliance or monitoring or ensuring that our border points are really guarded. Maybe there's some little I could solve it, but I really struggle to see how the agencies will up their games. If they up their games, then probably the little that we have, as my colleague mentioned, if there's little that we have and might be crossing the border, then they can avert it. But if they don't up their game, we are just issuing statements and.
All right, Bismarck is frozen there, but if I still have you, Anthony, I guess it's a good policy. We all think so, at least. And so the issue is the execution of the policy. Tell us about what you think the impact would be if we're able to really execute this ban on grain exports.
Yes, Darrell, my expectations were that a month ago, when the Chamber called on the government to set up the National Food Security Strategy Committee, if that committee was in place, which obviously would have involved the police, the military, the MMDC, and the district agriculture directors, by now, some of these interventions that they are bringing, which is too late, would have been curtailed. But of course, we have a situation at hand, and this is what we have. Let me also add that, you see, this is not the time to be focusing on ban. This is the time, this is a major season, and this is the time to be focusing on how we can supply fertilizer, seeds, agrochemicals, and the right amount of whatever that is required to all farmers across board in this country. Otherwise, the ban will amount to nothing, to tell you the truth. Because what is happening in the industry is highly critical. And you are talking about MOFAP. What are we doing? Government itself should be setting up or give money to the Grains Council or other places to buy a MOFAP soya, maize, and put in their warehouses. How much of food do we have in our buffer stock? Government MOFA should not be bothering themselves with the ban. If you think that we are having problem with food, which of course we are, then look for money, buy enough produce, and warehouse them. Because look, even this will even derail the investment into the industry. Because yes, to come out with such a statement, it negates the activity that the private sector put in. So the amount of money that the private sector will have to put in into production, aggregation, and support of farmers, statements like this will not incentivize them. It's not good. I mean, to put it bluntly, it's not a good statement at all.
Wait, I want to turn to Bismarck. Sorry, I want to do this in time. I want to turn to Bismarck because of some other news we're following to do with the struggle for fertilizer. We're hearing that smallholder farmers are having issues with fertilizer supplies. And we're hearing that government owes the Chamber of Fertilizer Suppliers, or the Chamber of Fertilizer Ghana, so much. Bismarck, how much does government owe? How has that impacted the work of smallholder farmers?
Well, the information that we are picking from the Chamber of Fertilizer Suppliers indicates that government owes them up to about 400 million Ghana cedis. And this debt is accruing from 2020 and 2021. For 2020, our information is that some amount has been paid, but a lot still needs to be paid. For 2021, no single payment has been made to this company. And that's having a big toll on we, the smallholder farmers. Because the effect of it is that the companies are not able to raise money to buy fertilizers from the world market. Mind you, because of the issues of COVID and Russia, prices of these products have become very, very expensive. And then the suppliers or the producers are looking for companies who have money. Unfortunately, our companies are not that liquid enough to raise that money because of the debt being by government. So the challenge is that we are not getting access to the surplus fertilizer because government is not able to pay them. As we are not able to get access to them, the implication is that we have to now rely on the fertilizers on the open market, which are very expensive. If you want to get a fertilizer on the open market, the 25 kg you are getting for not less than 200 Ghana cedis, and that's quite high. If you compound that with the increasing cost of production that we are facing currently as farmers, it's ridiculous. Every production cost that farmer is incurring, if you compare how much you spent last year to how much you are spending this year, all the prices have more than doubled.
I was told that you were engaging government on the high cost of production. What was the outcome of that engagement?
Well, we've not had any, for the fertilizers, we are informed that government is working to see to pay and also try and see whether we could begin to move towards alternative forms of fertilizer, that's the organic. We are still yet to see much light on that. But for the other cost of production, we've not seen much work or much work being done on that. So we are still at a loss on that. So what we are supposed to do now is to produce at high costs, and when that happens, the costs will also have to push the consumer to bear the cost of it.
I see. I want to throw the last question to you, Anthony. Do we have a leadership problem here? I heard you yesterday on radio call for the resignation of the Minister of Food and Agriculture.
Yes, I think so. Look, what I would have expected the minister to be doing right now is to meet the fertilizer importers, arrange the Bank of Ghana or Ministry of Finance to make available a credit line, okay, a credit guarantee to them, so they can use the government bond and import fertilizers for this farmers. But he's sitting down there thinking about his presidential ambition, whereas food prices continue to increase in this country day in, day out. So yes, there's a crisis issue. We have a minister who should be focusing on his job and making sure that there is enough fertilizer available, good seeds available, and also good agro inputs. Okay, but he's focusing on his presidential ambition, and I think that it's high time he steps down, because the challenges facing the industry requires a major reform for us to be able to catch up. We have the Africa Free Trade Continental with us. If care is not taken, we are going to start importing 3 times what we have been importing. And that is going to destroy the industry. As I've said earlier, industries have collapsed, and that is the biggest employer in the agriculture sector.
Thank you so much, Anthony Morrison, CEO of Chamber of Agribusiness, also Bismarck Owusu Norte, who is a programs officer at the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Still on the subject of food, founding director of the West Africa Center for Crop Improvement at the University of Ghana, Professor Eric Yoenchi Dankwa, is urging African governments to create the enabling environment that will allow for farmers on the continent to adopt and grow genetically modified crops. He says Africa has more urgent need for GMOs than the rest of the world. Professor Dankwa was speaking at a science communication workshop in Accra, organized by Alliance for Science.
The conclusion would be that smallholder farmers in Africa need access to biotech crops more than farmers anywhere in the world. And the time has come for African governments to use the data available to take decisions that will improve livelihoods and lift millions out of poverty and hunger. What we need is political will. We need swift and innovative action. I'd like to tell my first story, which motivates me. During the lockdown, there was a driver who was moving a commercial vehicle and he was stopped by the police. He rushed out of the vehicle and started screaming, "My wife and kids are at home hungry. I better die of corona." It is troubling, and that story I saw on TV still troubles me. Without a doubt, science, technology, and innovation are the gaps that have hindered our efforts at growth and development in Africa.
Now, Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, has described the rising inflation rate of nearly 24% as a complicated matter that will be dealt with decisively at the ongoing Monetary Policy Committee meeting that began today. In most scenarios, the policy rate, the rate at which commercial banks borrow from the Bank of Ghana, is higher than the inflation rate, but that will not be the case this time around. Speaking to Bloomberg, the governor said the rise in inflation is a surprise to his team, but will take major decisions to address the issue.
A year ago, inflation in Ghana was near single digits. In particular, we were at 7.5%. And then we find ourselves a year later in high double digits. It's a very complicated environment. As you yourself are aware, we've just come out of COVID. Ghana, fortunately, was able to impact of COVID well without recording a negative growth rate. And it seemed as if the economy had picked up significantly by the end of 2021 with a positive growth rate of about 5.4%. So at the central bank, we had this in November last year. We raised the policy rate by 100 basis points. And then we were rather surprised by the inflation rate, which came out later on after that, in February in particular, which triggered the 250 basis points adjustment in the policy rate. This week, the MPC would be meeting. I do not want to preempt what the committee will decide, but I think it's a very complicated situation. As you said, inflation is about nearly at 24%, and we need to take a position on what to do with the current policy rate at 17%.
While on stabilizing the economy, the governor said his outfit has had limited set of instruments to manage liquidity and interest rate.
The role of the central bank in stabilizing has been very clear. I mean, we have a limited set of instruments, trying to manage liquidity and trying to manage interest rates. And that's what we have done in the last year or so. As you said, we have to be conscious of the impact of the external developments and internal developments on exchange rates. And as if markets get tighter and we see capital beginning to flow out, obviously the interest rate instrument will have to do its part of the work. At home, we are trying to manage liquidity very tightly to ensure that we don't have excess liquidity fueling further inflation and exchange rate depreciation.
The business community will be making a case for the promulgation and passage of Ease of Doing Business Act. The act is aimed at ensuring that business regulations are applied according to best standards and international recognition. Chief Executive of the CEOs Network, Ernest Ejiri, tells Joy Business this year's Ghana CEO Summit, which is slated for May 30 in Accra, will be used as a platform to make the push. Here's more from the launch.
Remaining committed to creating an enabling environment for the conduct of business in Ghana, the call to action by the CEO Summit this year is for the passage of an Ease of Doing Business and Anti-Red Tape Act to promote business transformation through digitalization. According to the Chief Executive of the CEO Summit, Ernest Ejiri, the passage of the Act is the surest way to eliminate rigid conformity to procedures and requirements in government services, which only creates redundancy and bureaucracy.
Ghana's economy and doing business is at the heart of every CEO. Is it a case of one step forward, two steps backwards, or two steps forward, one step backwards? And our major call to action this year at the summit is calling on governments to pass the Ease of Doing Business and Anti-Red Tape Acts this year. Since the establishment of the Ghana CEO Network, the major concerns of CEOs has been the ease of doing business, the issue of regulators.
Speaking on behalf of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Head of Communication Charles Opoku pledged the support of the agency to this year's summit since it has been a successful platform for engagement by many businesses.
This year's theme, digital leadership for the economy, leading digital business and government transformation, is one that is particularly dear to us, primarily because of its stated objectives of fostering economic development by leveraging digital technology. As you may be aware, or you may be familiar with this information, Ghana has in recent years been keen on its digital transformation with initiatives such as the digitization of the port systems, the introduction of interoperability, digital address systems, and most importantly, the national identification systems. And margins is here.
This year is the 6th edition of the summit since the initiative was launched in 2016. It is under the theme, Digital Leadership for the Digital Economy, Leading Digital Business and Government Transformation.
All right, you're watching The Marketplace. We want to do some tech this Wednesday afternoon. Joining me is Henry Kobler of Skillmind. Great to have you on the program this afternoon. We want to talk about Netflix and talk about Twitter as well. Let's begin with Netflix, because news is that 150 people are losing their jobs in the US because of the challenges that Netflix is having with subscription. Tell us more.
Okay, Dario, thank you very much. So in terms of Netflix's stuff going on leave, I mean, it's a general thing that we're expecting in the tech industry, and it's not really just going to cut across from Netflix. I think that it's going to come in from almost a lot of the tech firms that are around, simply because of some reasons that we're experiencing. I mean, Netflix basically had a huge surge during the COVID period, where people had a lot of time in the house and so had a lot of subscriptions. And so them losing a bit of subscription and not having quite a new innovative pointer for recruitment of new subscribers basically gives them the leverage over some other companies like the other TV companies, but basically also loses some level of subscription, which having people sharing passwords and other things which they're trying to clamp on generally. And so, I mean, having some of the stuff going home, I think that is a very normal thing that we're going to experience within the tech ecosystem. It's going to cut down into, I mean, most of the regular companies that are around, even into the local tech industry, where you're going to have quite a number of people lose some level of subscription or users, which basically will come into even high, I mean, Twitter, and even the bailout on Twitter or the buyout on Twitter is being put on hold, which we'll talk about. But generally, you realize that when it goes down to subscribers, it's what fuels the company's revenue. And so when there's not much revenue, keeping staff and doing the same things really becomes difficult. And so cutting down on jobs which are almost redundant becomes the leverage to use.
Okay, just for the benefit of our audience, why are subscribers pulling out of Netflix?
So subscribers are really not pulling out of Netflix. I mean, the first part is that there's been quite a good number of password sharing. And so, I mean, if I'm sharing the password with my friend to be able to have my access to my Netflix account, which is always supposed to be like a household thing, I think that becomes the first point of losing subscribers. So it means that you're going to have quite a number of people using the same password to log in to view content rather than having to based on subscription. The second thing is that, I mean, there was a really huge surge during the COVID period, and quite a number of people are also now backing into getting off from remote working into going back into the offices. And so spending quite a number of time subscribing for Netflix becomes a very bad idea, especially when the content sort of also comes to be a bit stagnant, because Netflix basically is also cutting down on the revenues and spending on some content creation and its content sponsoring. And so it comes down in any parts that, I mean, generally the same revenue that they will get from the subscribers are what they're spending on these stuff, and generally it's really going to be a big deal for them.
And I hear that Netflix is considering multiple subscriptions to one account, or multiple users to one account, I should say. But let's turn to Twitter, and you should lead us into the thinking of Elon Musk, because right now people are wondering, does he really want to buy Twitter or not? But he's been raising concerns about spam accounts on Twitter.
Yes, so I remember that we've had this interview on Elon and really the mindset he carries into Twitter. Now, the first thing you have to realize is, number one, Elon is a business guy. And so he's going to find every ways and means to basically make money out of everything he could. So he's just looking at the subscriber base, which is really the fundamental basis of a lot of tech platforms. And so if you actually declare in a particular amount of live users, and I get into your system really because I want to do a buyout, and I'm not able to see those live active users on subscriptions, you realize that it becomes very difficult for me to trust the system, because he's saying that there are quite over 20% of fake users and bots, which really, when you get into social media network, that actually is part of the fueling the activities of on their social media platforms. Now, if you're having more than 20%, almost about 20% of your user base being bot and spam users, I mean, it really does not accumulate to the proper social media content that you're looking forward to. Now, Twitter is not backing on that claim, and they're saying that it's just about 5%, which they always climb on, but there's no proof. And so when there's no proof, Elon, as a business guy, is really going to say, hey, can you cut down the amount I'm supposed to buy Twitter for, or you have to show me proof to basically give me a good amount of trust on the system that I need to talk about. So he's just only being, number one, a business guy. He's looking at how to either cut the cost of Twitter on the sale table, but he's also looking at how effective what he's buying is going to be playing on into the market. And so he's just being a business guy there.
Okay, 30 seconds. How do you think this all will play out? Would Elon Musk eventually buy Twitter, or he's just playing a game?
It could be a game. We've seen Elon Musk do that on cryptocurrencies. I mean, he will tell you cryptocurrencies are good. He's already bought them. You go buy them, and he sells cryptocurrency, and now tells you that cryptocurrency is taking a lot of energy. Crypto goes down, and then he buys more. He's always been a business guy. It could just be that he could just buy Twitter for a lot of the mindset, which I think that he's looking at using that as a leverage or a decoy to a lot of his companies. But he's also going to just sometimes just slide out, basically by just making sure that he has a lot of shares in there, and he just basically leaves it out to the owners to continue to run, but he still sort of has a leverage or a hand in there where he can sort of control a bit of things around. It could just play out in any way, but at the end of the day, he's only looking to win.
All right, we'll see how this all plays out in the coming days. Thanks very much, Henry Kobler, lead Eyes of Africa, also with Skills Mind. That's the marketplace. Thanks for watching, everyone. My name is Daryl Kwab. There's more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. More on the calls for the resignation of the Agric Minister. You can read more on that over there, myjoyonline.com/business. Do enjoy the rest of the day.